Hello, this is Yael Weinstein from the Jewish Federation of Greater Orlando, and I'm here today to explain to you how to manage your meeting to hopefully mitigate Zoom bombing, and if you do have Zoom bombing, how to remove the Zoom bomber from your Zoom meeting. So with that in mind, I'm bringing you to my meeting setup, and I would recommend that you come in early to your meeting, so maybe 15 minutes before, so you can set all of these settings into place. The first thing I would recommend is to go to your share screen option, go to the menu, to the up arrow menu, and click Advanced Sharing Options. And within this, you have the ability to choose who can share during that meeting. So, for example, I suggested not to lock down sharing in your web portal, and the reason I did that is because you have the ability to lock it down and have the flexibility in your meeting. So you can decide if it's only the host can share, or if you're on, for example, a board meeting or something where you do want participants to share, you can choose all participants. What's really nice is this gives you the flexibility to change that as you need to during the meeting. So if you have it for all participants and something does happen, you can change it to only host. Or if you have it only host and you need a participant to share, you can change it to all participants and then re-change it back to only host as soon as that participant shares. So go ahead and select which one makes the most sense. I'm going to select only I'm going to keep it on only host, and then I'm going to close this out. Then what I would do is I would actually prepare my share screen options by sharing my screen, and this is again before anybody else is in. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, select what I want to share, and I go to this menu where I choose the more, and I have this ability to allow participants to annotate or disable participants to annotate. So right now it's disabled, and I could switch it to allow. And you'll notice then when I go back to that exact same place, now it says disable participant annotation. And so I can disable. And again, this gives me the flexibility versus if I change it to annotate only in the web portal at zoom.us, I don't have the flexibility to change it at my whim in the meeting. It means that I won't be able to annotate, and it means that I can't change it to allow people or not allow people to annotate. So by choosing who can annotate in your meeting settings, you have far more flexibility and you can protect your participants at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and stop share, and I'm going to show you other settings to set up. The first is you're going to want to open up your Manage Participants panel that will pop out here, and you're going to also want to do that for your chat. So with that in mind, let's look at the Participants panel. So with the Participants panel, you have this More feature, and you have all these different options. You can mute participants on entry. You can allow participants to unmute themselves. So if you're in a smaller meeting, you might want to do that. But in a larger meeting, you probably want to lock down who can mute themselves, being the hosts you want, the host and the co-host you want to be able to unmute themselves. But in a large meeting, you probably don't want anybody else to. And then you want to always put participants in waiting room upon entry, so you can open that door metaphorically. And then you want to know that you can lock the meeting. So locking the meeting is really useful. Once everybody's in the meeting that's supposed to be there, you can lock it. Or you can say you lock your meetings after 10 minutes or after 5 minutes. And what that means is nobody, if they're late, can re-enter the meeting or enter the meeting for the first time. So if you haven't had Zoom bombing, for example, in the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and you lock your meeting, you won't have the potential for Zoom bombing afterwards. The one downside of locking the meeting is if you have people who have poor internet connections or issues with their technology and they accidentally get dropped, if you lock the meeting, they won't be able to come back in. So just be aware of that. Now, in terms of the chat, what you can lock down is you can go ahead and open your 3 dots just like I did there, and you can choose who the participants can chat with. You can say that they can't chat with anybody. You can say that they can only chat with a host, so that would enable also the ability to chat with co-hosts if you have co-hosts. They can chat with everyone publicly, or they can have all the features of chat, which is everyone publicly and privately, and that means they can have private chats with individuals back and forth. I would recommend not allowing everyone publicly and privately to chat because you don't know what offensive things might be said to people privately. So at the minimum, you should have only everyone publicly so they can send a chat to everyone publicly. And with larger classes, you might want to do only to the host. So those would be your two choices that maybe you want to choose between. In terms of no one, I don't like that feature personally, because if people do have issues and they need the host support, you want to be able to let them reach out to you and everything. So those are the participants in Zoom. And now we're going to see what happens when somebody enters the meeting. So you'll notice that I now have one person in the waiting room, and I can choose to admit them or remove. I can also choose to message them, which is very nice. I can message people in the waiting room. I can write something like, I don't know, I don't recognize your name. Can you please tell me who you are? And then I can send it, and it will send that message to everybody in the waiting room. Say like I'm comfortable. This Galaxy S10 is actually my phone, so I know who it is. They text me back and they say who they are. I can go ahead and admit them into the meeting. Once they're admitted into the meeting, I have a few options that happen with this person. I can go to the More feature and I can see all my options here. I can ask them to start their videos. I can chat with them. I can make them a host or a co-host because I've enabled that. I can put them in the waiting room if I am concerned that they came in early, or I'm concerned they're not who they say they are, or I can completely remove them from the meeting. And this is important to know where this functionality comes from, or is located, because if you do have a Zoom bomber, what you're going to want to do is remove them from your meeting. So you would go ahead and hover over them and press remove. The really nice thing about Zoom bombing and everything for you to know, even though there's no really nice thing, but the really nice thing about if you have a Zoom bomber is that when you look at your participants, the person talking comes up to the top. So if they are talking, you don't have to go searching for who the Zoom bomber is. If they're talking, you can find them very quickly. And then if they are Zoom bombing in the with visuals, for example, taking off their clothing or doing anything of a sexual nature, for example, on screen, you'll most likely be able to see their image in your gallery, and you'll be able to click on who they are and remove them as well. So just know that you have the ability to remove in a few different ways. But this is a very important feature to know how to remove people, and I hope with that you feel more secure and more adept at removing Zoom bombers, managing your meetings to try and mitigate Zoom bombing. And I hope you're having wonderful events and wonderful meetings through Zoom during this difficult time.